Hi guys, Michael again. So the person that I chose to interview today was our lead technician at Spring Meadow Vet Clinic, which is also where I work. She's also a former instructor and former graduate of Stoutenberger College. So I figured if I interviewed her, she would be able to give a little bit more insight as to why the school is structured the way that it is. So the first question I asked her was, how do you deal with the difficult aspects of this career field? Which, by the way, this over here, this is Daisy, one of our Jack Russell Terriers. She's popping in to say hi, apparently. So, anyway, her response was something that I've, struggled with up to this point in my career, which is you have to know when to leave work at work and when to leave home at home. Most of us have pets, so when we walk into that building, we're going to see a lot of not really great things. You're going to see some things that are going to remind you of your pets at home as well. So it's a really, really difficult concept to really grasp that this animal is not your animal. So you kind of have to learn how to discern between what's appropriate and what's not. The second thing she said is, don't sweat the small stuff. Especially us being new and getting into the field, we're going to make mistakes. Whether it's feeding a catheter, IV catheter properly, we're going to make those mistakes from time to time. So her biggest message there was just don't sweat it. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to be okay. Just as long as you fess up and own up to those mistakes. Because what you perceive as a simple mistake, if you try to sweep it under a rug and the truth eventually comes out, or the consequences of that decision turn out to be really, really negative and have a really negative impact on the life of the owner and the pet, that's something you have to take into consideration. So always be honest, always be upfront when you make a mistake. And the third thing she said was, in this industry, it is very unpredictable. You may go into a day thinking, well, the appointment schedule is pretty light, but chances are by the end of the day, when you leave the office, you're really going to feel like you've just worked your butt off. The second question that I asked her was, what is the type of personality that you should have? Which would be the best personality type to be in this field? Her response was, first, you have to be outgoing. For those of you that got into this field because you are under the impression that you're not going to have to deal with people, you are 110% completely wrong. You are going to deal with people nonstop, whether it's on the phone, through email, or right there in the office. You're still going to have to deal with them. So that's something just to keep in mind. The other thing is, you have to be compassionate. Not every case, whether it seems like a clear case of, let's say, animal neglect or cruelty. Sometimes there are extenuating circumstances. There are things that are going on there that we don't really know about with 100% certainty. So you have to be compassionate with those animals, even when they're trying to bite you or scratch you, or when they're just giving you a really difficult time, they're just being really difficult to handle. You have to be compassionate there, because animals react in stressful situations in some ways similar to what humans do, and in a lot of ways very differently than what humans do. Most of the time, there's that risk that they're going to react in a stressful situation in an aggressive way, which puts you in danger. So above all, be compassionate. Try to do things with as little bit of stress on the animal or the patient as possible. Third thing she said was, you have to be open-minded. You're going to have some clients come in from time to time that they're going to have a story as to why they can't afford to pay their vet bill or why their animal is behind on vaccines. A lot of times it's going to be financial reasons, and it's really, really easy to develop a judgmental mindset. So above all, as far as personality goes, you really have to try to be as open-minded as possible. The other question I asked her was, what do you like most about your career and what do you like least about your career? What she likes most about her career is the fact that every day when she walks into the office, she knows she gets to make a difference. Whether it's making a difference in the life of the owner or whether it's making a difference in the life of the patient. You'll from time to time have patients come in that are flat out, very little in terms of responsiveness. It very well could be an easy fix, something like parvo, not a super easy fix, but it's something that can be treated. And you'll have owners that will say, they really don't have the money, they really can't afford treatment. So what we do is we try to save them as much money as possible as far as treatment goes. So you have those clients that will go above and beyond, out of their way, to show their appreciation for how much you did to care for their animal, which is a great feeling. The other thing is, you gain more and more experience and more skills the longer that you're in this field. That is also one of the things that she really loves about it, is the medical field, whether it's for humans or for animals, is constantly changing. New scientific discoveries are being made every day, and some of those scientific discoveries can be applied to humans, and some of them can be applied to animals, and some of them can be applied to both humans and animals. There's a lot of medications that we use in clinic that can also be used on human beings as well. So every day you walk into the clinic or the hospital or whatever facility you're working in, go into it knowing that you're going to learn more and more and more every single day. And that to me is a very rewarding feeling, because you'll never really get bored in your job. Some of the things that she did not like about being in this field was, coming to the realization that you just can't simply save every single patient that crosses your path. It could be a puppy who is struggling with parvo, and no matter what we do for it, it's not enough. Sometimes the animal doesn't get to us in time. Sometimes we had a case, just last week, a litter of puppies that had parvo. One of them was completely flat out, had a temperature of 107 degrees when it came in, extremely dehydrated, vomiting, diarrhea, sloughing its intestines out. Its litter mate was showing relatively no symptoms. The one that came in flat out unresponsive, that one lived, and the other puppy that was showing relatively no signs passed away the very next day. So that's something you kind of have to come to terms with, is that you just can't save them all. So you have to, you kind of have to develop a tough skin to work in this field. Another thing she dislikes is knowing, beyond the shadow of a doubt, there are going to be cases of outright animal neglect or cruelty that come into your practice. The downside is that in the state of Ohio, as long as the owner of the animal seeks medical treatment for whatever is going on, even if they're the ones who kicked that dog across the room and caused it to have a diaphragmatic hernia, if they bring it in for treatment, you can't report that, because they did the responsible thing as a, quote, pet owner by bringing it into you for treatment. So you kind of have to develop like I said before, a thick skin to be in this industry, because there are going to be times where beyond the shadow of a doubt it is absolute animal cruelty. But again, there's nothing you can do about it outside of treating the problems as they walk into the clinic. The final question that I asked her during this interview was, what did you feel was, as both a working professional in this field and a former graduate of the same school that we are currently enrolled in, I asked her what was the most important experience or class that she felt helped prepare her for this career field, and she said absolutely 110%, completely confident in this answer, was that the most important aspect of our schooling was PODS, doing your PODS hours. even if it's you're sitting in a clinic and all you're doing the entire time that you're there is observing, it's better to observe because you're gaining a lot more knowledge before you even get into the field. So that greatly reduces the amount of risk involved as far as making mistakes, because what you'll see, especially throughout our PODS hours, is that every clinic is going to do things a little bit differently from the previous clinic. So it makes you a very, very well-rounded candidate for any technician position within any organization, especially if you're going for a lead technician position. This greatly helps out your resume. The other aspect of what she found most important was our surgical rotations, which, most of us aren't going to get there for quite a few more quarters. But she said that was absolutely crucial to passing the VTNE and being successful in this career, because the further we get in our schooling, and by the time we get to our surgical rotations, that's when everything really starts to come together. You really start to see the bigger picture. So this concludes my presentation on who I interviewed. So I hope you guys gained a little more insight, and I hope some of the things that I discussed today will give you guys the determination and the drive and the ambition to keep pushing forward, even in those times where we feel like this is a little too difficult, things aren't really quite meshing well, I don't agree with what's going on with this particular patient, stuff like that. Just take into consideration it's all for our own good. So I thank you again, and have a great day, guys.